Assalamu alaikum and hello to my non-Muslim viewers. Today I'm going to be talking about one specific false story about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. I saw a video by converted to Islam, a recent apostate from Islam, in order to, get attention for himself and stuff like that. He's been making videos critical of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, Islam, etc., etc. So I saw one of his videos and it said Muhammad with son's wife, and his whole video is about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, Zayd and Zaynab. Zayd was the adopted son of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, according to the biography of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and Zaynab was the wife of Zayd. She was a Qurayshi. She was an Arab woman who the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, married her to Zayd. So let's begin refuting this story of Prophet Muhammad with a son's wife. So the alleged story goes on why the Quran chapter 33 verse 37 was revealed, was because the whole story goes that one time the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, went to see Zayd, but Zayd wasn't home. He went to Zayd's home and Zayd wasn't home, so he knocked on the door, and Zaynab, who was the wife of Zayd, answered the door, and she was wearing very little clothing. She was wearing a shift or a nightgown or something like that, and the nightgown was revealing. And so the story goes that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was face to face with Zaynab, and Zaynab was very beautiful. She had a very beautiful body. Allegedly had a very beautiful body, had a very sexy body. So the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he allegedly fell in love with her, or he was fascinated by her beauty because she was wearing very little clothing, and then he immediately left, and then Zayd came home, and Zaynab told Zayd that the Prophet Muhammad came over and I answered the door, and Zayd and Zaynab were arguing later or something like that. And then the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he was still thinking about Zaynab all the time because she was beautiful and stuff. And then the Quran chapter 33 verse 37 came to him, marrying Zaynab to Zayd, even though Zayd was already married to Zaynab at the time of the Quran's revelation of Quran chapter 33 verse 37. So the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, allegedly took his adopted son's wife, because his adopted son's wife was allegedly very beautiful, so he wanted her for himself. Now, is this story true? No, it isn't. First of all, what's the source of the whole Zayd, Zaynab, and Prophet Muhammad and Prophet Muhammad coming to the door and stuff like that? What is the source for the story? The source of the story is this book, Tariq Al-Tabari. I have it on my iPhone. Unfortunately, I don't have a hard copy of Tariq of the history of Al-Tabari. I only have it on my phone. But anyways, this is like the full book of Al-Tabari Volume 8, and the story is found here. The story is found on page 2 of Al-Tabari, to page 3, and to page 4. Now, page 4 has a different version of the story. The version goes that one time the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, went to Zayd's house, but at night, and Zaynab was sleeping, and she had, again, she had very little clothing, and there was curtains between the door and or there was curtains in the hut of Zayd's house. So when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, went to Zayd's house, the wind blew the curtain, and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, saw Zaynab, and she was wearing very little clothing, and he fell in love with her, or he started admiring her beauty, And then later that day, the Quran chapter 33 verse 37 came, marrying Zaynab to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So that story is kind of different, but it's found in the same source, which is Al-Tabari, page 4. And this is on my iPhone 6. So anyways, what now, is the story true? Are these two stories true? No, they aren't. First of all, what does Al-Tabari himself say about his own books? Al-Tabari warns people on page 168, on Al-Tabari Volume 1, page 168, and again, I'll put all the references below, that his books are filled with both weak and authentic stories about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And if anybody knows anything about hadith methodology and stuff like that, we accept stories about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, if they have fully connected isnad, or chains of transmissions. Because after the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, died, people were making up stories about him. Of course they're going to make up stories about him. What's stopping them? Nothing. So, people were making up stories about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And early sources like Ibn Ishaq, Al-Waqidi, Ibn Sa'd, Al-Tabari, they were writing these stories down, 150 years or 200 years or 180 years after the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, died, without verifying isnads, or chains of transmissions, because at the time they couldn't verify everything. So they would just write down whatever they were hearing orally from in whether they were in Egypt or Iraq or Arabia or Syria, whatever they were hearing orally about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, they were writing it down without verifying whether what they were writing down is true or not. So, a lot of these false stories were incorporated into Al-Tabari, and Al-Tabari even admits that his book's not all factual. It's not all history. It's not all authentic, isnad certified or chain of transmission certified stories. Of course, he even admits that there's, weak stories in his narrations. And I'm going to be pulling that up right now. Hang on one second. So all we have to do is go to Al-Tabari Volume 1, page 138, and then we can see that there is, Al-Tabari is basically warning people that his books are filled with weak, inauthentic information. Not everything Al-Tabari is writing down is authentic. So we have to keep that in mind, that whenever these critics of Islam quote Al-Tabari saying the Prophet Muhammad, did this and that, etc., etc., they're going to be quoting from, most of the time, they're going to be quoting from Al-Tabari. Al-Tabari wrote an entire volume set of history from Volume 6 to Volume 9 covers the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him's life, but not everything in there is correct, is true. So what is the isnad for the first story of the whole Zaynab, or the whole Zaynab, Zayd, and the Prophet Muhammad? What is the isnad? The isnad is, the first isnad for the story is Al-Waqidi. Hopefully you can see it on my phone. But the first chain of transmission goes according to Muhammad bin Umar, who is also known as Al-Waqidi. Now the question we have to ask ourselves is Al-Waqidi a reliable narrator when it came to hadith? No, he wasn't. Al-Waqidi was a known liar in the Arab circles. He was known to fabricate hadith about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and people like Ibn Sa'd and Al-Tabari. Al-Waqidi lived after Ibn Ishaq. Basically it goes Ibn Ishaq, basically for the early sources of Islam, it goes Ibn Ishaq, Al-Waqidi, Ibn Sa'd, Al-Tabari. So basically Ibn Sa'd and Al-Tabari, they lived after Al-Waqidi, and Al-Waqidi was circulating his books and his oral reports. So Ibn Sa'd was a secretary of Al-Waqidi, so he was writing down whatever Al-Waqidi was telling him, even though Al-Waqidi was known to be a liar. And Al-Tabari heard the stories Al-Waqidi was saying, and he wrote it down in his history books. And Al-Tabari volume 6 to volume 9. So basically, the first chain of transmission is al-Waqidi, and al-Waqidi was a known liar. Now, what is the second chain of transmission for the second version of the story? The second chain of transmission for the whole Zaynab sleeping story was Yunus bin Allah ibn Wahab ibn Zayd. And again, I'm reading from Al-Tabari, page 4. But basically, these narrators are, they didn't know the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, or the immediate companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, because these people, they lived at least 100 years after the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him's companions died. So none of them knew the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, or the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him's or the very early Muslims. And when I mean early Muslims, I'm talking about the immediate the Muslims who were around the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. All the early Muslims died, and then but then who fabricated the story? It looks like the story was fabricated by Yunus bin Allah, because he's the first chain of transmission here. Now, why he would fabricate the story, we don't know. We don't know why, but there's this really good book called Studies in Early Hadith Methodology by M.M. Al-Azami. He discusses why people would make up stories about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. They would do it for their own, they were either hypocrites spreading lies about Islam, because they wanted to destroy Islam from within rather than just fight it, just physically fighting it, or they would just fabricate these stories in the mosque or the marketplace in order to gain favors, or in order to justify their own behavior. They would invent these stories. I'm gonna do another video on why people would fabricate these stories later on. But again, that story. But this video is not about that. The story of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taking his adopted son's wife because she was very beautiful, or she had a sexy body or a very beautiful body, is false, according to Islamic methodology, according to verifying the chains of transmission. So what is the story behind the story? Why did the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, marry Zaynab to begin with? Well, the reason why he married her was because Zayd and Zaynab were having problems with their marriage. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, married Zayd to Zaynab. The reason why is because he wanted to marry Zaynab to Zayd because he wanted his adopted son to feel like he was part of the Muslim community. He was part of the Islam community the way he should have been. Zayd was a freed slave, so back then in Arabia, in the sixth century, slaves were looked down upon. So the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, married Zaynab to Zayd. If the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, really liked Zaynab, he would have married her to begin with. Why did he marry her to Zayd? He would have already seen Zaynab. He would have already seen her, sexy body or beauty or whatever before he married Zayd to Zaynab. So the Prophet Muhammad didn't want her to begin with. He married her to Zayd to begin with. If he really wanted her, he would have already married her to begin with. And what is the source of that? The source is. The source is Tafsir Al-Tabari Volume 10, page 301. And this story is also found in Ibn Hisham's biography of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So which I have right here. So the whole Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, marrying Zayd to Zaynab is an authentic story. It happened. So what happened to Zayd and Zainab. Why, why did the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, marry? Why did he end up marrying, Zainab? The reason why is because Zayd, like I said, Zayd and Zainab were having problems with their marriage. Zayd and Zainab were constantly complaining, and this is found in Sahih Bukhari. Sahih Bukhari is the most authentic source of information about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. If you want an authentic story of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, you need to cite Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Abu Dawud, Al-Nisa, Ibn Majah, Tirmidhi, etc. So you need to cite the authentic hadith collections, because the hadith says whether a story is authentic about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, or whether it's false about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So again, I'll give the reference right now about that whole about the on the Bukhari hadith. The Bukhari hadith is found in it's found in Sahih Bukhari Volume 9, Book 93, number 516. So again, Zayd and Zainab complaining or having arguments with one another is found in Bukhari Volume 9, Book 93, hadith number 516. So that's the whole reason. Zayd and Zainab, they were having problems with their marriage. They were complaining. So then the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, told Zayd, keep your wife. She's, just keep your wife, despite the fact that they were arguing and complaining and stuff like that. And it wasn't, the marriage wasn't working out. So then the Quran, chapter 33, verse 37 was revealed, and Zainab was married to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So Zayd divorced Zainab because, they were having problems with their marriage, and Zainab was married to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, because, the marriage wasn't the first marriage wasn't working out. So that's the whole reason why she was married to the Prophet. Then the Quran chapter 33 verse 37 was revealed. Now, what about adopted sons? In Arab custom, in pre-Islamic Arabia and in pre-Islamic Arab customs, they used to think the adopted son is like your biological son, according to Tafsir Ibn Kathir on Quran chapter 33, on Surah 33 verse 37. But Islam came to correct that incorrect belief about adopted sons, and said that no, in reality, your adopted son isn't your son, as in your biological son. So Islam came to eradicate that false belief. So Zainab was married to the Prophet Muhammad. So Zainab, so the whole reality of the story is that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, married a divorcee. That's pretty much about it. She was divorced because she was having problems with Zayd and Zainab, and they were complaining and arguing about some stuff, and then and then Zayd divorced her, so Zainab had nowhere to go. She was divorced. So the Prophet Muhammad, Allah or God revealed the Quran chapter 33 verse 37 to the Prophet Muhammad, and Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was married to Zainab. Now the interesting thing is, if you go back to that Bukhari hadith, Bukhari Volume 9, Book 93, number 516, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he didn't even want to marry Zainab to begin with. He didn't even want to marry her even after she got divorced, according to Aisha, and Aisha was one of the wives of the Prophet Muhammad. So even the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he didn't want to marry Zainab. He was told by God to marry Zainab. So this is more proof that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, didn't write the Quran to begin with, because if he wrote, why is he criticizing himself in the Quran? That doesn't make any sense. If someone's writing a book, why would they criticize themselves in that book? It just doesn't make any sense. And again, the whole story behind the marriage is the authentic story is found in Sahih Bukhari Volume 9, Book 93, Hadith number 516. So that's the whole Zayd, Zainab, in the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, story. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, just married a divorcee. She was divorced, and the Prophet Muhammad took her in, or married her by divine revelation, even though, you know, and the reality is he didn't even want to get married to her to begin with. He did it because Allah told him to do it. So that's the whole story behind it. Again, I'll put all my references down below. Stay tuned for more videos. Inshallah, I'm going to produce more videos, and you know, stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching. Assalamu alaikum.